You know, things aren't right at school today. I mean, I'm usually afraid going in every morning, but this morning feels different. Usually, the student teachers are only half paying attention to us when we're walking through the school doors. They're too busy on their Nokia 3310s. But this morning, they seem anxious and are counting us as we pass. So when I go to hang up my coat, I hear the other girls talking about something called Ouija? Wedgie? Now, if it's the latter, I want nothing to do with it. I would be the perfect target for that kind of punishment. But the three girls who normally persecute nerds like me at school are nowhere to be seen. During religion class at the end of the day, I finally get answers. The teacher has just finished explaining that religion and science actually aren't in competition. And then she asks us 10-year-olds if we know what Ouija boards are. An isolated laugh ripples through the classroom. And so, slowly but surely, the teacher reveals all. The three girls who are absent today managed to hide out in this classroom, right here, after school closed for the evening yesterday. Even after all the school teachers went home, and even after the caretaker locked the gates. And while they were in here, right here where we are now, something caused them to scream, start running, and set off the alarm. And the caretaker, he only lives like a few houses down the road. I can't even begin to describe how small this town is in Ireland. He hears the commotion. He is able to run up to the school. He finds the girls in a terrible state. He calls the principal, who calls the parents, who is now considering whether or not to bring this to the Board of Management's attention. And I can see this stress is the teacher out, particularly this last point, because she is now looking skyward, like the saints that we have paintings of in our school corridor. But that wasn't the worst of it, so the teacher says. She tells us that while they were in here, these girls did something despicable. They used a Ouija board. And judging by the expression on her face, this is one of the worst things that has happened all year, worse even than the time that the nurse from the local clinic came in to talk to us about boys and babies. And so she explains to us that a Ouija board is like a toy, but it's absolutely, definitely not a toy, not under any circumstances, girls. A Ouija board is a board that has a bunch of letters on it and a counter that moves by itself, and people sometimes use it to contact spirits or people who've passed over, or maybe some people, they want to contact the devil himself. Yes, girls, she shrieks, the devil is real, and those girls have been visited by someone or something that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Right now, I am fixed to my chair. I've never heard of anything like this before. The only part of my body that I can move are my eyeballs, and they are scanning the classroom looking for any evidence of what the teacher is describing. And I think she senses that I'm a kind of scaredy cat, and she softens up a little bit then, and she says she understands that us girls, we have lots of questions about how things work and why things happen, but she tells us that when we believe in God, sure, we don't need all the answers. She tells us there are some things in this life that can't be explained, but are there to harm us. And make no mistake, girls, these girls have been harmed. So I'm pondering all this very anxiously on the bus home. I mean, my parents, they raised me to think that the devil was just another monster under the bed that I should have given up on years ago, but let's be honest, I'm 10. And it's Ireland in 2003. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Catholic Church is losing its influence, we're becoming a much more progressive country, but it wasn't that long ago that grown adults would go on television, national television, and tell people that they had seen holy statues in churches and in shrines around the country moving by themselves. In fact, in the summer of 1985 alone, there were over 30 reports of these moving statues across the country. Now, it's quite possible that some of these reports were made up, either for 5 minutes of fame or the ensuing tourism boom that these towns and villages would be eventually promised. But my classmates and I are just a generation away from that, and even now, we're still a bit nervous around the Virgin Mary statue in the school playground. Sometimes at lunch break, we stare at her and dare her to budge. Because they say if you stare at her long enough, she'll start weeping, especially if it's raining. So if I can accept just a small part of that, then coming to accept that the devil is real in some way is not a big leap. So what does this all mean then? Is the school cursed? Am I cursed? I mean, I wasn't involved in any of that Ouija board stuff, but am I implicated? Does the devil know who I am? Will he follow me home? Is he on the bus? The bus wheezes as it pulls over beside the Christian Brothers Boys' School. And I see Mark, my acquaintance / burgeoning crush, stagger aboard. I ask him how his day was. He shrugs. Silence for a few minutes, and then I burst. My day was weird. And I tell him all about what the 3 girls did and what the teacher said and how the devil might be on the bus now. Mark listens very attentively to all of this, but his response is brutal and brief. Sure, what would the devil have to talk to you about anyway? He digs a Discman out of his backpack, turns away. I'm silently enraged. But he's got a point. I mean, I'm pretty dull, like normal. And even if the devil did try to make contact with me in some way, it would probably be like those times a salesperson calls my parents' house phone and I happen to pick up. Something like, "Oh, hi, it's your mum in. I'm calling about her soul." Or more likely, "Sorry, wrong board." The next day, I'm walking back into school through the playground under the watchful gaze of the Virgin Mary statue. I see the 3 girls are back and they are eager to reestablish their tough reputations. They spot me and the crowing near my neck begins immediately. "Heard you were scared of the Ouija board, sucky babby." By the way, sucky babby is possibly the worst of all the small town Irish insults there are. It cuts deep. And one of the other girls shoves my shoulder and tells me that they were talking to demons about me and that I'd better watch out. This is all very silly. And I try to do what my mum says, keep walking, ignore them, be the better person. But my blood is boiling. I can't be the better person. Sorry. And I feel all that blood-boiling heat rush to my brain and rush to my mouth. And before I know it, like a girl possessed, I say something without thinking. "Sure, what would the devil have to talk to you about anyway?" "The only thing you've got in common with a Ouija board is how thick you are." And I immediately realise that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, as I said, as you could probably imagine, I'm quite innocent. I've never seen a Ouija board before. I'm trying to say that they're thick as in stupid, and I imagine a Ouija board is probably like maybe cardboard width. It doesn't land, it doesn't make sense. But it does something, it makes them stop. They don't look afraid of me. They just look shocked, hurt even. I almost feel sorry for them. But I just enjoy this feeling too much. They move on, walk away, and they leave me alone for the rest of the day. I like this feeling. Where is it coming from? Is this power? Is this what revenge feels like? Vindication? Maybe it's the devil's influence on me. But most likely it's Mark's. But being the good Catholic schoolgirl I am, I begin to feel a little bit guilty about the whole thing, Maybe I burned some bridges with the guy upstairs. So I look across to the Virgin Mary statue once again, and I whisper to her, "Was that okay?" And through the mist, I'd like to think she gives me the thumbs up.